Stay tuned after the episode to hear our latest edition of And Then What. The Diaries is brought to you by that friend who always says, "Hell yeah!" Want to climb El Cap? How about a river trip in June? Running on a random January Wednesday in the pouring rain? I'm there. We need friends like that. And here at the Diaries, we've got them. They're called Diaries Plus members. 2 years ago, we didn't know if we'd make it. We weren't going to run ads for online gambling because you know what? That's stupid. We came here to you to ask for your help. And some of you did. And it's meant that 2 years later, we're here making it work. But we have a vision where we thrive, not just survive, where we continue to be ambitious and bring our message of outdoor connection and friendship and community to the next generation. So if you believe in that, if you are someone who can say, "Hell yeah," please consider becoming a member of the Diaries Plus. Link is in the show notes and on our website. Marco, have you ever heard the phrase, "never meet your heroes"?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that is usually coupled with the sentiment of never meet your heroes because you will be disappointed, which I don't know if it's true or not, but I don't know. What do you think?
You know, I haven't really found that to be the case. I think what people may have been getting at, like when they came up with that saying or when it gets passed through, is that sometimes the people we admire, they are human, just like you and me, right? Sometimes they turn out to be like humans with issues or even not really nice humans. But most of the time, I feel like they're pretty good people because it's actually pretty hard to make it far in life if you're a total ass, in my experience.
Yeah.
But they are human and they do struggle and they're working through things just like you and I are. And I don't know if that like feeling of disappointment stems from the fact that they aren't magical, you know, that they are normal. Mm-hmm. And maybe that humanness means that we can't let ourselves off the hook. That they didn't achieve audacious things just because they were magic. They attained it because they worked insanely hard. They took risks. They failed. They got back and failed. And they got back up again until it worked out. Marco, how long have you been chasing this interview for?
Dude.
I feel like you've gotten back up and failed again and then gotten back up again on this one.
I looked back in my emails to see kind of when exactly I first pitched this interview, this idea. And I found this like email that I drafted to you, and it was like a top 10 list of interviews that I wanted to pursue for Dirtbag Diaries. And I sent you this in January of 2023.
So it's been a hot second.
It's been a hot second, more than 3 years.
Yeah.
And number one on that list was Kimi Werner. I'll just give you like the 10,000 foot view of Kimi. She is a world champion spearfisher. She's a world-renowned chef who has kind of specialized in this sustenance-based cooking, you know, this idea of like eat what you catch, sustainability. I mean, if you search Kimi Werner on YouTube, you will find videos ranging from her catching a massive fish in her front yard, which is the Pacific Ocean, and then preparing said fish, cooking it in her backyard in her home in Hawaii for her family. Or maybe she's in New Zealand, like hunting stag, or she's like free diving for scallops in Alaska. I just think like Kimi is the epitome of fun, creative adventure.
How did she end up on your radar in the first place?
Well, my girlfriend actually, Lena, introduced me to her YouTube channel. I mean, we were living in the Bay Area during the first year of the pandemic, and watching Kimi's channel was just, you know, like one of those mental escapes for us. And it also got us really stoked because we were already thinking of moving to Hawaii. And when I sent you that list 3 years ago, I remember thinking like, okay, I live on Oahu now. Kimi lives like an hour away from me on the North Shore. This is my chance. But at the same time, I was also thinking like, who am I to interview Kimi Werner? Like the imposter syndrome was going very strong at that point because she's like an A-list celebrity in Hawaii, you know, like you walk through the airport and there's Kimi on a massive wall-to-wall poster because she's sponsored by one of the airlines. You know, it's like she's kind of a big deal here. So I just knew that sitting down in person with Kimi was going to be difficult because she's just a very in-demand person.
So you didn't give up?
I did not give up. We renewed the push to get Kimi on, I think at the start of last year. And I actually got so far as to get into a group chat with her via like a mutual friend. But that ultimately did not go anywhere. And then a few months ago, the book showed up. Kimi just came out with her new book, Kimi's Kitchen, which a publicist sent to Duct Tape Then Beer HQ in Seattle.
Yeah, that was serendipitous. I was like, bingo, here's our in.
It really was. I mean, getting in touch with Kimi's publicist to get a sit-down interview with Kimi also lined up with kind of this like 3-month window where now former Dirtbag Diaries producer Skylar Perwins was living on the island. And so, you know, it was a good chance for like me and Skylar to kind of collaborate in person. And we scouted out a location at this beach park on the North Shore where we could like conduct the interview. We ended up finding this like beautiful, massive monkey pod tree over this grassy knoll, you know, provided some shade and like a suitable enough place to interview Kimi. So it was cool how it worked out.
I guess my question for you, Marco, would be, should you never meet your heroes? Or should you meet your heroes? I guess is the better way of saying it.
I think if you get the chance, I think absolutely you should meet your heroes. And this kind of ties back to what you were saying a bit at the start. I mean, I think through this whole process of trying to get Kimi on and actually interviewing her, I was able to overcome some imposter syndrome myself. And, you know, like, Kimi has led this really inspiring life and career, but she's also gone through like the same trials and tribulations that we all have to face when we're deciding what to do and how to be happy. I'm Marco Siler-Gonzales.
I'm Fitz Cahal. I think you should say it, dude.
You're listening to the Dirtbag Diaries.
My name is Kimi Werner. I am from Hawaii, born and raised on Maui, and I am a freediving spearfisher woman and a mom, and I love to cook.
I've heard a couple times that, you know, you say you're someone who's like driven by nostalgia, and nostalgia like seeps into like these decisions that you make from day to day and like with your career. So I kind of want to start this off, and if you could humor me for a second. If you were to close your eyes and think back to the first memories of your early childhood, can you tell me the smells you're smelling, the things you're hearing, what you're seeing and feeling?
Yeah, it sounds so weird to say this, but the first smell that I'm smelling, I never really thought of this as a smell before, but it smells like sunshine. It just smells like sunshine after a rain, sunshine on grass. Like I can see myself playing under the orange tree that grew right in the middle of the dirt driveway of our little shack that was in the boonies. And it would get so much rain there. And so I can just see the multicolors of the moss that was our house, basically. Just the kind of, I guess, rotten wood panels just from being rained on so much, and all the different grays and greens and browns and the patchwork of the tin roof. The sounds that I hear would be like the thunderous sound of the rain when it would rain on that roof and all the drips that would come through it. I mean, it was literally a shack, but still, when I think about my earliest memories, I just see myself kind of in the sun, laying on the grass under a tree, just surrounded by nature.
That's beautiful. I mean, when I've heard you talk about your childhood, it does seem like, even though, you know, your parents didn't have much money early on, it seemed like a pretty whimsical, dreamlike childhood.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe I don't feel like I'm just romanticizing it. I feel like I loved living during that time when my parents didn't have much money. And I think it was clearly a time where, you know, I was 4 or 5, going on 6 at one point, but that early childhood where they didn't make much, I think it was before I could even feel like any of the world's judgment about that kind of status. And so I was free from that. I didn't really know that part of it. Looking back, I realized like there was a reason why I paid less for school lunch than everyone else did, but it wasn't it wasn't like you were judged for it yet, you
Yeah.
know? And so all I remember was just the happiness of living in this place where it was just thriving with nature. Like nature was just bursting out of like everything. And my parents, like, they seemed happy. That's one thing I really noticed about them, is when they kind of made it into middle class and then later into upper middle class, they were happy. But when I think about them being pretty much like dirt poor back in the day, they were still a very happy couple.
Yeah. I mean, you've built obviously like your career and cooking around cooking and, you know, sustenance living. But I'm kind of curious on like what a meal meant back when you were a kid. Like, how did you interpret the idea of cooking and food as a child?
I guess it would just be working together as a family. I mean, we actually, when I was really little, we would cook up a lot of our meals in an imu. Like my dad would dig out an imu. We raised rabbits. We would make kalua rabbit. But it was always, there was always such a process of getting together and working together, whether it was, kalua rabbits or harvesting the chickens or cleaning the fish that my dad caught in the ocean.
I mean, what were the beginning days of fishing with your dad?
I think I was a natural. It's kind of foggy memories, like the beginning days. My dad would tell me that he started off pulling me on a boogie board. He brought like a little boogie board, and it's so funny how like not a good idea this is, but because he would have his spear gun, and his spear gun was connected to like basically this empty Clorox bottle that was his buoy, where he would string his fish to. And sometimes he would just tie the boogie board to that and pull me. So basically I just would be like trolling along with these dead fish in the ocean. But he said that I would not stay on the board, and I would always just get like plop right off and just be swimming alongside him or swimming right behind him. So he just stopped bringing it all together. And so I do think I took very naturally to it for sure. I do remember that was something he taught me so early on, was just to relax. And when it comes to swimming, to just know, and it took me a bit to grasp this, but to really understand that if you can swim in 2 feet of water, you can swim in 200 feet of water. And because at first, as soon as I would get into a place that was deep, it would trigger panic in me, and that panic would make me forget how to swim. And it was one day where that whole lesson just kicked in, where he kind of, he just kind of left me, and and I felt like I was drowning, and I really thought I wasn't going to make it. And then finally, his voice of just always saying like, just relax and remember how to swim, it clicked, and I started swimming. And it was like, I was so mad at him, but then he was so proud of me. And I remember like from that day on, I realized, I'll never forget how to swim again, because I used to always panic and forget, when I would get scared. It's just a classic form of panic, is when you panic, you lose control of what you're doing. And I remember once it finally clicked, I just realized like, he's right. Like swimming is something I will always know how to do.
Yeah. I want to turn to your mom for a moment. I heard in an interview that when you were around 5 years old, your mom went back to college to get her nursing degree. And, like you said, your family started to make more money. You moved to the, I don't know, we call it suburbs, but better housing. What did it feel like to see your mom take on that role as a provider? And did that have any kind of lasting impact on how you operate as a mother, chef, entrepreneur?
I think I just always felt so proud of her. My mom, she was just always like the most generous, giving, humble person, and she came from a tough life. She got pregnant when she was 17, and so she was kicked out of her house and then kicked out of school, which is so unfair. And it's not like the father was kicked out of school, but she was kicked out of school for being pregnant. And so she ended up giving her baby up for adoption, but not ever graduating high school. And it was always her dream to become a nurse. And when my parents first got together, they did not have much money at all. So it took like years and years of savings just to put her into Maui Community College. And so I was in kindergarten, and so that would make her 41. She was 41 when she got her first shot at going to a community college. And I just remember us both kind of being like having our first day of school, and I knew it was like almost a bigger deal for her than it was for me. And then when she graduated, like at the top of her class, I mean, I just could tell that like it felt so cool to watch someone so wonderful realize their dream, because it really was like a dream come true for her. And I remember right before she was about to walk the line and get her college diploma, somehow they found out that she didn't graduate from high school, and they called her in, and she just was like, yeah, and she explained it, and they did just say, if you don't tell, we won't tell, and they just like let her slide, and so that was always something she was grateful for. And she got a job in the emergency room, Maui Memorial Hospital, and I think the coolest thing, the main feeling I remember about my mom was that she never took it for granted. You know, it was so different, like when I went to college and it was like 13th grade for all of us. You know, it was just like an accepted thing, and you didn't think of it as something that you'd have to wait another 20 something years for and save up for just to have the shot to try for it.
Yeah. I'm curious on the teenage young adult Kimi and how you kind of transitioned to competitive freediving and spearfishing. Was that a means to an end to like, you know, find your way, or did you kind of like revel in a competitive environment?
I mean, I think I always have I've always had a competitive side for sure. I've always had this drive about me and this very like tenacious personality that when I put my mind to something, I really had a hard time letting go of it. And so yes, I've always had a competitive side. But I would say, I mean, teenage and young adult Kimi, I was still just finding my way, and I was in culinary school. After graduating from high school, I went to KCC here on Oahu and was in culinary school. And I was doing competitive canoe paddling, which I really enjoyed, but I knew it was close to being like a true passion. It did satisfy my competitive side. It did get me in the ocean, but at the same time, I just knew that it wasn't quite it. And so it was like those years were years of just kind of, I don't want to say feeling lost, but definitely that's what comes to mind, is feeling a little bit like I'm searching for something and I'm kind of spinning out, you know, and I'm checking all these boxes of like what I feel like I'm supposed to do to satisfy myself, but I'm still seeking it. And so it was these years of seeking, and it wasn't until I finally picked up a 3-prong, picked up a spear at the age of 24, and thought, you know, let me see about this, and kind of returned to that it changed everything. And I just fell in love with it. And for 3 years, I was just obsessed with it, like just on cloud 9, obsessed with it. But I would say after those 3 years, yeah, there was a part of me that just wanted to see, like, how would I compare it to others? Like how, you know, and the people who taught me, the guys that mentored me, they were national champions. And so it felt very natural for me to be curious of like, what would it be like to do the national championships? Could I do it? You know, I've been trained by some of the best, and I just want to know what that would feel like to see, you know, how would I compare? It was just following curiosity. It was just like 100% following a passion or an obsession and being super curious about it. And then that is what led me into competing.
I don't want to get too in the weeds of like how the competition works, but I mean, I am wondering like what does it take to become like a championship?
It's really cool, actually. The way it works, it's really cool. The national championships, it's done by kayak, and so you have this human-powered vessel, and they blow this horn, and you literally have 6 hours to go diving and cover, you know, this wide range of ocean. There's boundaries and everything, several miles out to sea, several miles long, and it's like a scavenger hunt. And so there's size limits and bag limits to every species. It's more strict than, you know, the conservation laws are. Like they really do. They put a good emphasis on all of that. And it also makes it where you really need to kind of be good because you can't just shoot one big fish and win it all. It's a scavenger hunt. You get 1 point per fish and 1 point per pound with a cap usually of like 15 points. So even if you shoot a 30-pound fish, it's only going to be 16 points maximum. Not to get too into the details, but basically you need to know where all the different species live. You need to know how to hunt them all in order to be successful at this. And it really is like a big, crazy Easter egg hunt.
Do you remember your stats in your championship years, like what you were bagging? And
that example I just gave you, I shot a 30-pound fish.
Oh my gosh.
But I love that wasn't enough to win it.
Yeah.
You know, I love that I had to keep going. But yeah, my first national championships was in Rhode Island. It was really my first time ever diving outside of Hawaii. And it was just so neat to get there. I couldn't afford to get there weeks in advance, but I got there a few days in advance and really tried to scout this ecosystem and learn it. And it was so challenging. It was so different. It felt like I was learning diving all over again. But eventually I found my comfort in it. And I did learn from the fish there. And it was really neat on competition day. And I will say, like, even though I'm like, oh yeah, you have to be good, you also get to get lucky. And I definitely got lucky too.
In that competitive chase, did you have like a burnout moment or a time when you were like, maybe this isn't for me anymore?
Oh, 100%. It didn't take long at all. It took about, my competitive years did not last very long. I'd say after about 2 years, and again, my first taste, I got to win the national championship. So that was really a moment of glory, and it really put me like kind of in this spotlight, you know, and also made me have this hope that maybe this was something I could somehow turn into a career, because it did get me a lot of recognition. I was a struggling artist at the time. My paintings started to sell. Like, things just seemed a little more successful after that. And so it was only natural to think, oh, this is what I have to keep doing. But I would say like a year and a half or 2 years later, I was so over it. I just, I don't know. I just realized that first one was really cool. And even though I continued to do well and win after that, it never quite felt the same. And it started to kind of turn me off. And even though, again, like they did really great jobs with the rules, the bag limits, the fish would be like donated to communities in need. Like I have nothing negative to say about the way those competitions were set up, but just for me personally, I just started to have inner conflict of thinking of fish as points and trophies. And I think because I do have such a competitive side, I don't know how to turn that off. And so what happened that made me feel the burnout and feel like I had to quit is when I was back home in Hawaii, just swimming out to go get myself dinner. It used to bring me the greatest joy, in the most like simplistic, primal, satisfying way. And instead, my competitive side, I couldn't turn it off, where even when I was just swimming out here at home, I would just be looking at fish and being like, you know, how many points would that fish be worth? How many points would that be worth? And I'd still be in competition mode. And all of a sudden, my heart was just like, this is not it. This is not why you love diving. You love diving because it is a return to your roots. You love diving because of the food and the magic of going to this beautiful world, and because you're so present when you're underwater, and you're not any of that right now. You're just thinking about trophies and winning. And that turned me off, and that really started to deteriorate this love that I had and this connection that I had to the ocean. And I realized that first and foremost was what I needed to preserve. And so I walked away from competition early on. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I felt like I was making a terrible decision at the time, but I just knew I had to do it.
Yeah. Do you think, because obviously you had a huge interest in cooking, you were going to culinary school before, it was a big part of your childhood. I mean, did you return to cooking after that in a way to like kind of return home to yourself and like, oh, this is actually what matters? Was that a variable?
Cooking has always been there. Cooking has never wavered in my life. I think it's interesting. I was cooking since I was like 7 years old, and it was something that I was always passionate about. My mom and grandma always encouraged it. When I was in high school, I took food service. I was the president of the food service club. Then I went to culinary school, and I learned quickly that I didn't really want to do it professionally in a restaurant. It didn't have the same, again, it's like a relationship, right? When I started working in a restaurant, I felt my relationship to this passion burning out because I loved cooking because of the creativity of it. I loved creating new things, and I loved working with food that I felt a connection to, and I also loved watching people eat and get so nourished in so many different ways from this meal. Once I worked in the restaurant industry, I realized for me that creativity was gone. I was making the same thing every night. The connection to the food was gone because everything was imported and frozen. And I also wasn't even getting to see or interact with the eaters. And so I realized that wasn't for me. That was taking away my love for that passion. But I always cooked. I never stopped cooking. It was always something that I did every single day. Still do.
After the break, Kimi talks about her run-in with a very dangerous jellyfish and her recovery. Stay with us.
As the days get longer, it makes it easier for me to get out on the trails, which I love. I can go early with the birds when they wake up, or I can stay out late and catch the sunset with friends. Whether you're scrambling up a rocky ridge or trekking through mossy, sun-dappled forests, or maybe you've got your sights set on something bigger like the AT, PCT, or CDT, Oboz has something for you. They craft purpose-built footwear with an unrivaled field and rugged durability. They are committed to making better footwear and protecting our planet. From using recycled materials to powering their headquarters with clean energy, every step they take is intentional. And because they plant trees for every pair sold, Oboz is helping to rebuild the places we love. Thanks to Oboz for supporting the show, but more importantly, thanks for leading in a global movement to do business differently. To find your next pair of footwear, check out obozfootwear.com/lovehiking. Oboz Footwear. Love hiking. Snacks. I'm here for them because snacks are a key part of any good adventure. Though it would be hard to count how many sweet little treats we've doled out over the years, we always make sure to pack snacks that will actually keep our boys fueled for the day because they're little monsters. I swear to God, they eat so much. It's why I appreciate Kodiak Chewy Bars. They're protein-packed with whole grains and real ingredients that help keep all of us satisfied and ready for whatever the day brings. Kodiak bars have 7 grams of protein and taste great. They come in what I consider the classic bar flavors, chocolate chip and s'mores. That's right, classic. Plus, they're easy to slip into just about any sized pocket. From power cake mix to chewy bars to oatmeal and granola, you can find Kodiak products at kodiakcakes.com or your local grocery store. They're the ones with the bear on the box. I went running yesterday. That was awesome because I had to take a long time off because I hurt my knee. Boo. And it felt so good. I didn't go that far. But you know what didn't happen? I didn't get any blisters. My little feetsies, they were so well protected because I was wearing darn tough running socks. They have got my feet covered, and I'm very grateful for that. They've been making awesome socks for over 40 years in Vermont. They pride themselves on using merino wool sourced from America and around the world, and they back it up with an unconditional guarantee for life, which I wish my knees came with, but they don't. That's fine. I'll work through it. If these aren't the longest lasting socks you've ever owned, return them for another pair. Darn Tough is offering free shipping on any order for Diaries listeners. Use the code DIRTBAG at checkout. We'll put a link in the show notes, or visit darntough.com to find your new favorite pair of socks. Your feet deserve it. Thanks, Darn Tough, for supporting the show. Seriously, you make it possible, and we're grateful. Summer's here, which is awesome. Early mornings, late nights, raging all the time, which also means I'm hungry all the time. No matter where I'm headed, I can easily take Kachava's whole body meal shake with me. Their new travel packs ensure I get the nutrition I need with none of the guesswork or mess of packing it myself, because I definitely would make a mess. With 2 scoops of Kachava, you get 85 plus superfoods, nutrients, and plant-based ingredients. So not only am I getting 25 grams of plant-based protein, I'm also getting adaptogens and super greens at the same time. For me, there's the added bonus that there's no artificial flavors, colors, or sweeteners. That matters to me. Kachava has 8 flavors to choose from, including chocolate mint. I definitely use it after a long run, hard workout, long bike ride, climbing, all of the above. I find it helps stave off the afternoon hunger pains, which are legit. Take your daily ritual with you. Go to Kachava.com and use the code DIARIES for 15% off your first order. That's Kachava, KACHAVA.com, code DIARIES.
I wanted to ask about something that happened in 2024. You had a pretty nasty run-in with a jellyfish.
Yeah.
And I think...
Was that 2 years ago already?
Yeah, right?
Wow.
You know, any athlete's worst nightmare is getting taken out of the game for a prolonged period of time. And like, especially with an injury like that, it looks so gnarly. I mean, can you explain a little bit about what happened? And in that downtime and recovery, was there something revealed to you that you might not have recognized when it was business as usual?
It was our first family, like out of country family trip. It was always a dream of mine to bring the family, like to bring Buddy to Southeast Asia. And I had got invited to go to speak at this sustainability conference in Borneo. And so it's like, okay, well, once we get there, we're going to travel all over Southeast Asia. And we did. But we ended up in this little island off of Indonesia. We're in this little town of Java. And I just was longboarding. I just went to catch like these little fluffy waves. It seemed like the safest thing you could possibly do. All the kids were just playing on the inside, and I just paddled out. And I just remember it was a gentle, fluffy, whitewash wave coming my way, just like a gentle roller. And I started paddling for it. And when the whitewash came over the back of my legs on the longboard, it just felt like electrifying. It just felt like it felt like a shark with electric teeth just bit into my leg. It just felt like my whole leg was on fire, but not on the outside. It was like, the reason why I say a shark bite is because I felt a deep penetration of fire go into my leg. It was unlike anything I've ever felt before. And I've been stung by a lot of things before. You know, in my time in the ocean, like I've been stung by a lot of jellyfish. I've been zapped all the time by things I don't know what they are. But this one was different than anything I felt before. I heard myself scream. I immediately stood up on my board and rode the wave. And I remember just riding it all the way to the shore where Buddy and his friends were playing and they were clapping, and I just had to get off my board, and my leg was already just starting to swell. It was like instant. At the same time, my brain is like, I've been stung by so many things before. This one's really gnarly, but I just have to wait it out. And so I went to my hotel room. I told myself, I did the whole hot water, vinegar, every remedy that I could think of. But I just told myself, wait it out. Like, this is the initial shock. This is an initial pain. It will go away. And like 12 hours later, it was like it took every ounce of my being to manage this pain. Like I literally felt like I was doing everything I could to stay alive. And that is something I don't say lightly. Like it was just excruciating. I started feeling these weird feelings like in my ears. I started getting these weird tastes in my mouth, and the pain, the throbbing from my leg was just so intense. And eventually, like it did start to like lessen enough for me to manage it. And then I thought, okay, here's where the recovery starts. The next day, it was just so tight, it looked like it was going to explode. And the next day, it was blistering, and then just started weeping. I mean, it was gross. It was really disgusting. It was just like weeping, and it was just like so red. I would wake up with these intense things, and it would look like somebody put out a cigarette on my leg. And now I'm talking like open flesh wounds happening. And I'm really stubborn. And so I just kept trying to power through it. And I demanded that we stay on this trip and have fun as a family. And I was just there trying to like limp around and make sure that everyone got to do fun things. And by day 12, my husband was just like, I don't think you realize that you have a serious injury. Like, I don't think you're realizing that, but this is a serious injury and it's time to go home. And it was gnarly. It was so gross. And we got home, and I went to all the doctors I could here, and nobody could figure it out. Like, I mean, it just was unlike anything anyone's seen. And finally, my friend got a hold of this jellyfish specialist. Her name is Dr. Angel Yanagihara, and that is what she has studied for decades now. And when she saw the photos of my leg, she was just like, you are lucky to be alive. Like, first and foremost, she said that was a sting of some sort of subspecies of a box jellyfish. And basically, it has daggers, which makes so much sense now thinking about what I felt, but daggers that are long enough that when they go into you, they don't just release venom into your skin, and they don't just release venom under your skin. They go long enough to get into your muscle, and they release the venom into your muscle. And she said, and what's even worse about this is it's like thousands and thousands of capsules of slow release venom. They have the instant ones, and then there's thousands of slow release venom capsules, which made so much sense because, one reason why I kept being so stubborn to it is because I'd actually feel like I was getting better at some points. I'm like, look, I think it might be going down. It hurts a lot less today. I can walk on it today. And then the next day it will just flare up again. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? Maybe too much walking. But it was the slow release venom just releasing. And so the next concern became compartment syndrome, which is when your limb stays swollen for too long and the circulation is not getting in there. You have the chance of losing that limb. And but the only cure to take away compartment syndrome is the most invasive thing of just like, it would just be filleting that muscle open to release the pressure. And so I waited it out, and I just like, as long as I can move my toes, I do all these checks, but I don't want to fillet my calf muscle open if I don't have to. But I think it took 68 days or something like that before it really started to go down and not flare up again. And so that was a good amount of time to be completely taken down by something and really think about what that meant. And I just wanted to dive, honestly. That's all I really wanted to do. And there were times where I would sneak away and just go do it. And I didn't want to put too much pressure on those slow release venom capsules and have them all burst and do something really bad. And, when you dive down under the water into the depths, you're putting pressure. And so I went about it carefully, but the thought of it not getting better was a truly depressing thought. But it also just was something I had to just reckon with and sit with. And I just had to come to terms with it. And I just realized, like, okay, well, first of all, it's time to write a book, because I am just like sitting here now with my leg up, and do these things that I've been moving too fast in life to actually do before. And so put your whole heart into this book. But also, I just knew I just had to get back in the ocean. And even if it was going to be in a way that wasn't the same as before, that I would still appreciate it more than anything, as long as it wasn't taken from me. Yeah, it was a crazy time. And though the jellyfish thing really did make me hunker down and just realize, like, okay, like, while you're injured, just put your whole heart into what you can, which is this book. And it's something you've wanted to do your whole life. So don't waste this time of being, high and dry and on land, and really put your heart into it.
Well, so I actually, I discovered you by watching your YouTube blogs during COVID, actually.
Yeah.
I should say my girlfriend introduced me to your videos, and we would like watch them, that first year of the pandemic. I think it was kind of when you first started making those videos.
Totally was.
And one of the things that she was always so impressed by, and that she would kind of like, wanted to tell me about, was that you were starting this creative project as like a new mother. Your son Buddy was so little in those first few videos. It was so cute. So I just kind of want to know, like, what were those early days diving into this like new era of your career while raising a newborn baby? Like, that's pretty crazy.
It was so crazy. Yeah. I mean, I guess like prior to finding out I was going to become a mom, I was really living this jet setting life. Like, I was diving did end up becoming free diving, and spearfishing in its own way without competition ended up becoming my career through sponsorships and making films and product testing and environmental pursuits and all these way cool things that I could never even imagine being my life. And it became my life. And it was a great one. I mean, I was traveling to every single continent, diving every single ocean, swimming with narwhals, swimming with orcas, like dreams just like that I could never dream of were coming true. But I was on the move all the time. And I did kind of put off motherhood, I think, because I knew, like, how am I supposed to do this with a baby? But I always knew I wanted to be a mom. And at 39, I found out I was pregnant. And I just realized, like, okay, things are going to change. And I knew, like, I want to stay home and raise this child, you know, like, stay home for at least a year and raise this baby. But how am I going to do that when this career has been built on just being so nimble and, you know, mobile and nomadic? And so that was my husband. It was his idea, where he, you know, he's a cameraman, and we've always would put our skills together. We did a bunch of like traveling TV series for other companies and lots of like branded content and stuff like that. We got to work together on Nat Geo stuff all over the world. But he basically was like, well, why don't we just use our production skills and just do something at home? You know, we're gonna be home for a year. And I was like, okay, but I don't know where the adventure and all these types of things are gonna come in. And he's like, Kimmy, like, there's one thing that you do every single day that you don't show people. Like, people know sustainable Kimmy or adventure Kimmy, freediving Kimmy, but you cook every single day with such love, and you don't show people that part. Like, we should show them that part. And he's like, we just have to make sure we get a nanny first so that we can do it, because we're gonna have a baby. And I was like, no nanny, we're just gonna put the baby on the table and we're gonna do it. And so that was our plan. And that's what we did. We had Buddy and we just started cooking. It was so easy then because he couldn't walk. And we would just plop him on the table and we would just make meals. And it's crazy because I was like, oh, is this going to actually work? Is this like, are people really going to want to watch, like, by now, this 40-year-old mom? I was 40 the time I had him. And this 40-year-old mom just cooking in my backyard when it's so different from what I used to do. Or all the brands that sponsor me, are they gonna get rid of me because I can't travel and do all this stuff now? And it's so crazy that we had set the date to launch this series that we were stacking videos for April 2020, having no idea that by that time the whole world would be shut down, that nobody would be traveling, that none of like the companies I worked for would be trying to send me anywhere, and that everyone was kind of looking at what do we do, and that we all had to stay home. And then people also had to learn to cook because the restaurants were closed and whatnot. And so it really was so interesting that right when we put that out, it was when COVID happened. People were consuming more content. People were wanting to learn how to cook. And I think more than anything, though, people were just craving this normalcy of that we just kind of preserved in the sanctuary of our backyard. You know, we never talked about COVID. We never talked about the pandemic. All we did was just get together as a family and cook. And anytime, you know, if I'd go out diving and get food, we'd bring it home, we'd cook it, and we'd eat it as a family. And we just like try to make it all about nature, belonging, foraging, family, and food. And it was amazing, the community that poured in. Like, it felt like we needed to do that to get us through that time. And it felt like a lot of people really appreciated having it during that time.
And one thing I remember that really got me, I was like, oh, this is like a great YouTube, you know, blog or whatever. And like, it was, I think you guys were in Alaska fishing, and you're at this cool cabin, and it was like you and Buddy, like maybe like gutting a fish or something on a small bench, and like Gutty's kind of in the background a little bit, and all of a sudden he kind of just like drops out of the shot because he like falls off the bench. And you know, your reaction was just so good. It was just so funny, but like very real and authentic. And you were doing something so cool. And I was like, oh, this is like the best YouTube video ever, like best cooking page ever.
I think that has to be hands down like the moment that is brought up the absolute most as the most beloved moment. Like, we need to kind of bring that back. But yeah, I was I think I was talking to camera.
Yeah.
And I was doing something over a bench and like showing how to like get uni out of, get the sea urchin out of its shell and talking about it. And I put Buddy is up on this like little hill that I thought was safe.
Exactly.
And as I was cleaning, I just remember being like, baby fell down. And Justin just turned the camera and there was like, ah! Buddy was like tumbling down this hill. But we didn't edit it out. We let it roll and we just showed everyone that Buddy was okay and that lesson learned, like find a flat spot to put your baby next time. But I think that was also the beauty of the channel, especially during that time, is that we were figuring something out and we weren't trying to pretend that we had it figured out, because we didn't.
Yeah.
We were both brand new parents. We had never really changed diapers or held many babies prior to that. Most of the recipes we were trying, were experiments of their own too. And so we were constantly just like, very honestly on an adventure trying to figure something out every single episode.
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, in many ways, like as far as like access to adventure in the outdoors, you've put Buddy in a very similar environment to how you grew up, with that access. And I'm wondering like what you would hope Buddy remembers or takes away from his childhood that you're providing him.
In my cookbook, in the dedication to the cookbook, I feel like that's exactly the question I was trying to answer. It was more in terms of the book and what I would hope, in leaving something behind for him, what I would hope he would get out of it. And so this is what I wrote. Dear Buddy, these pages hold more than recipes. They're the stories of where I came from and where you came from. And long after I'm gone, these recipes will be here to remind you that you will always belong. No matter where you are, you belong to Hawaii, to this earth, to the ocean, and to nature itself. I hope these recipes remind you to be resourceful and scrappy, to use what you have and make it shine. I hope they remind you to stay curious and taste new flavors and never stop seeking and learning from the world around you. I hope they teach you to embrace the struggle and make the best of it, because creativity rarely comes from having a wealth of options. It's usually quite the opposite. As long as you have nature, you are not alone. It's who you are and what you're made of, and I'm there too. I'm in the trees and the rocks and the rain and the fish, and in the ridiculously tiny tomatoes that sprout up from the cracks in the concrete. I'm in these recipes, and so are you. So cook them and eat them and make them your own, my boy. And with every bite, remember who you are and that you will always be home. I think really what it comes down to is that sense of belonging. If I could just leave him with anything, and I think that's why I try to raise him and give him this access, like you said, to whether it's these wild places or just even to just like knowing what's on his plate. I just underneath it all, I feel like at the core of all of us, all we are is nature. Mm-hmm. We all are nature. And I think sometimes our human species forgets that. And we think that we're either separate from it or above it. And I think that's where we can wind up in a really lonely place, because we forget that we are just another part of this living, breathing world. And when we don't remember that, I think we can feel these holes in us, and might feel a little lost or might feel a little empty, and we might try to fill those voids, with other things like outside validation or status or material things, or or a lot of things. We can just chase these other things, all because we don't feel a true sense of meaning and belonging. And so for me, I have found that in nature, but I can't help but think we all are nature. And so that is what I really want to leave him.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kimi, for connecting with the team in person. Kimi's Kitchen, a cookbook, is out now. And I'm going to say it's much more than a cookbook. It is part autobiography, part coffee table book with incredible photography. And there's also a lot of culinary inspiration, which, if you're like a working dad who's in charge of dinner a lot of times, is super helpful, because I need ideas. And there's a lot of ideas in there. So thanks, Kimi. The show is powered by Diaries Plus members. You make the show available to the rest of the community. You step up and say, this is what I want to listen to, and this is what I want to see in the world. We are so grateful. This is not mindless scrolling or AI slop. When you become a member, you support thoughtful work and the power of the outdoors. You help us share that with the rest of the world. Thank you. So if you haven't already, please consider joining. It makes a big difference between us being here and not. The link is in the show notes. You can get the show delivered wherever you get your podcasts once you're a Diaries Plus member. Want another way to help? Write us a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps others find the show. There's a reason why every podcast asks this. It does work. So if you can take 5 minutes, it helps us continue to reach people. Our stories come from friends of friends, and from you, our community. If you have a compelling idea for a guest or a story lead, please give us a shout. You can email us at editor@ducktapedandbeer.com. Music today from Archery. The tracks are courtesy of the artists or Track Club. Jacob Bain and Nis Cotto composed our theme song. You can find the artists at our website, dirtbagdiaries.com. Marco Siler-Gonzales and Skylar Perwins produced today's show. Huge shout out to Skylar, who, after 4 years with us, moving on, best of luck, Skylar. Thank you. Evan Phillips edited today's show. Daniel Jungworth is our social producer. Lauren Delani Miller is our senior producer. Becca Call is our executive producer. I'm Fitz Call. You've been listening to the Dirtbag Diaries. Welcome to And Then What, the segment where we break down the headlines, figure out what the hell's happened since then. Hey everyone, usually we pick one topic and give you an update on the issue, but lately there have been so many efforts by elected officials to undermine our public lands that we didn't really know where to focus, which is, of course, by design. So this month, we thought we'd just zoom out a little bit and get a bigger picture of what elected officials in D.C. have been trying to do. There's some good news and some bad news. Here to make it less overwhelming is Land Tawney, Executive Director of American Hunters and Anglers. Land, you've been working on public lands issues for your entire career. I mean, first with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and now with American Hunters and Anglers. You've been an incredible leader. You've led huge rallies at state houses. Every time the public lands have been threatened, you've shown up. Have you ever seen it this bad in terms of the number of threats facing our public lands from our elected officials?
Fitz, good to see you again. First of all, yes, I've been a part of a lot of those things, but there was a lot of other people there too. There's people all across this country that have stepped up, and, what a great opportunity to work with those people. To your question, it's never been as bad as it is right now, at least in my career. I started working on this stuff in about 2000. I would say you would get, one attack over here, one attack over here. But right now it's all happening at the same time. So, and it's being done by design, that kind of flood the zone. And so that people get tired. And so if they slip one or two through, then that's a win for those that want to kind of dismantle, defund, and then ultimately destroy our public lands.
So our hope today is that we could do kind of a quick roundup on everything that's happened in the last few weeks. There's been some wins, there's been some good bits, there's been some not so good bits. I think maybe we should start with the roadless rule.
Sure.
This was a policy that was created almost 3 decades ago with a huge amount of public input that essentially decommissioned forest roads that had fallen into disrepair. It served a couple purposes. First, it saved the Forest Service a ton of money. And the second thing is it helped rewild a lot of the 58 million acres it covered. It's been in the crosshairs from this administration. Senator Mike Lee, he just unsuccessfully tried to get rid of it. Where do we stand right now with the roadless rule?
Sure. So not only were those kind of those roads that they kind of shut down that were kind of in disrepair, but also just these areas that were so wild and steep that they couldn't really take timber off of them. They just weren't conducive to that piece. Mm-hmm. Back when this was established, I think they had 600 meetings around the country, had 1.6 million comments, 90% which were in support. So very highly supportive of what you just described. And then Mike Lee, who, is, I would say, the number one public enemy to public lands. He tried to sell those 3 million acres last year about this time. Any chance he gets, he's trying to, dismantle them in some way. This is another version of that. And so there was this must-pass piece of legislation. When I say must-pass, we're coming into fire season. It's actually already started, but it's called the Wildfire Prevention Act. And so he slipped in there this roadless provision that basically would have undone not all 58 million, but 45 million acres of the roadless rule. And actually, they voted on that in committee, and they voted it out of committee. So that's still active right now. And strictly on party votes, 11 Republicans voted for it. 9 Democrats voted against it. The Democrats that voted against it not only were pissed about, it was like he put a poison pill in there, so now they can't vote for it. And so now that can hit the floor at any point. But, I think the chances of that actually getting passed are pretty slim. It would have to get that 60 vote threshold to really get over the filibuster. And so I'm not as concerned as that passing. But then you also have at the same time, the administration is doing their own look at the roadless rule, and they can come out with their final rule at any point, which will give us another 60 days to comment on, but would rescind the roadless rule from an administrative level. Sure, there'd be lawsuits around that one. The Senate would be more permanent because it'd be a new law versus an administrative rule. I mean, I just went fishing these last 3 days, and on the final day, I was in a spot that had big W wilderness on one side and then a big chunk of roadless on the other side. And it's some of the most amazing fishing for wild trout. So the native trout that we have. And I was just thinking about that in the context, of all the stuff that's going on, and they want to take that away. And then in the context that you said, more roads, they have 370,000 miles of roads on our forest system already. They have a $10 billion with the B dollar backlog of maintenance. How are they going to pay for it, right? That's like wanting to put a new annex on your house when your roof is falling apart. I mean, all roads lead back to Mike Lee, and him as the chairman of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee in the Senate, he can do stuff like this. They put that provision in on a Wednesday night and then voted on it that Thursday morning, giving we the people zero time to react to that. We all tried to rally the troops a little bit, but that was super tough.
Yeah. There was a bit of good news, particularly with Senator Lee. He had been trying to unravel Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. And I mean, basically it was reducing the infrastructure around how to manage this incredible region in Utah. He introduced a bill. It was unpopular in the state, and it did sort of seem like, oh gosh, it's going to pass. But it timed out. Congress didn't really want to touch it. They didn't want to bring it to the floor. What role did everyday people have in defeating that effort by Mike Lee?
So he used the same tool, the Congressional Review Act, to allow that mine up in the boundary waters. So he was using that same rule. And I think what happened with the boundary waters is everybody got organized. And while we lost that by one vote, it organized people. And so around the Grand Staircase Escalante, I saw online people that hadn't really even weighed in before about Grand Staircase Escalante are now making videos about it, talking about what an amazing place it is, because it is. One thing we're finding is that people that tag their elected leaders in comments, it's like a modern day, I would say, town hall. But I think so that people were doing that and then making phone calls. And ultimately, the time ran out.
Watching all this unfold, I see two things that seem almost contradictory to me. I see Republican elected officials that seem to have completely dropped the pretense of openly caring about what their constituents think when it comes to protecting public lands. They just are clearly not in our camp, even though we've weighed in. There's no more talk of bipartisan public land caucuses. It's all pretty brazen. But it also feels frightened to me in a way. It seems like they're trying to rush these unpopular things forward because they realize their time may be up. Does it seem that way to you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that especially here in the West, elected leaders are I love public lands. They want to put it on a bumper sticker, right? Because they know their constituents are demanding it from them. And then they turn around and Senator Risch from Idaho is a good example. Saw him in a hearing about these roadless lands. And he's like, we all get along around public lands. And then he votes to rescind them, right? We, the people, need to continue to push back against that. But that sneaky thing that Mike Lee did where he introduces this provision on a Wednesday night and then they vote on it Thursday morning, they're doing that on purpose because they want to try to make it so nobody knows what they're actually doing, right? That's partly what we're doing at American Hunters and Anglers, is just trying to, let people know what's going on, and so that they can't slip these things through. But yeah, no, they're nervous, man. And I think they're coming up on an election, in November, a midterm. It's going to be brutal, I would guess. And so they're trying to do everything they can to minimize the impact of all these things around public lands that have been happening. And they're trying to act like they're champions, but in reality that they're not.
It is an incredible thing to witness, where somebody can sort of say one thing and then just do something completely different. I guess that's politics at large. But pivoting a little bit, in early June, there were the first ever leases auctioned off for the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. It is truly like, we talk about the sort of the big W, right? Or just this even idea of what wild is, and you realize it is just shockingly so intact and so incredible up there. First time they were actually auctioning off leases in the refuge. That, to a lot of people, is a really sad moment. It's obviously not ideal, but buried beneath that headline was something more complicated, that there wasn't actually that much interest. Like, of only 5 of the 58 leases were sold. There were no major oil companies that bid. There are those that want to turn public lands into their personal ATMs, like tear down the whole system. You've pointed that out. It's sort of a reverse idealism.
Yeah.
Typically, that faction has had economic and even broad public support on their side. But I think when we see things like these leases not selling, you're seeing this shift. Industry isn't necessarily even for these things. It's difficult enough to do this already that it doesn't make sense for them. Do you think that we are, like, in a lot of ways, the momentum is heading in the direction of protections for these places?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I think it's a great sign. I think that would not have happened without the people, though, right? Like, I think that the Arctic in particular is such a special place, both for the Gwich'in people that have been up there for a long time, but also just, I think, for the American people in general. They love, like, polar bears, they love caribou. And so there's been an education effort around the Arctic for a long time. And so these companies, one, it's super expensive and complicated, to get oil up there. But two, the backlash from the people around, drilling in the, like, crown jewel of the National Wildlife Refuge system is severe. And so they decided not to do it. So, no, I think it's a good sign. But I would say that did not happen in a vacuum. It's not like they were sitting around the boardroom and be like, actually, we like the Arctic and we don't want to drill there. No, it was the people that caused enough of a groundswell, I would say, to really, inform them that would be a bad idea for them to do. And so I think that's a good sign. I mean, I still wholeheartedly believe in democracy, but we, the people, have to demand what we want. And when we don't get it, there has to be consequences. And those consequences, can be, I think, public shame, which, those oil and gas companies did not want.
What do you think the Mike Lees of the world, the people that are pushing this reverse idealism about protecting public lands, like, what do you think frightens them the most? What do you think keeps them up at night?
I mean, Mike Lee is just dogmatic about this. Like, I don't know if he's, like, scared of anything, right? Like, I think he's maybe scared of time running out, and so he can't be the leading charge of dismantling and then selling off our public lands. I think that the people, besides Mike Lee, because really he's kind of on an island as far as the villain, I think they're worried about the people knowing what they're doing and then holding them accountable. They also, at some level, are worried about, performing for these, corporations that are giving them money.
Yeah. What are you and American hunters and anglers paying the most attention to in the coming months? Like what's the top issues on your radar?
Yeah, I mean, I think this roadless piece is huge, right? That vote could happen at any time. It has such an impact over so many acres. I think that, again, the ballot box and these elections are our opportunity to tell people that we want something different. We want change. And I think there's hardly anybody right now that would sit there, if you're an outdoor user, whether, you mountain bike, kayak, climb, hunt, or fish, that you like what's going on right now.
Yeah.
We're unique. We're not a 501c3. We're a 501c4. So we can, tell people who they should vote for or who they shouldn't vote for. And we did that on purpose because we saw what was coming, with this Congress and with this administration, and knew it was going to be bad. I don't think I ever imagined it was going to be this bad. But now, since we do have this tool in the toolbox and we can do that, we are going to help, people make informed decisions.
Well, thanks, Land. I really appreciate you taking the time today to
do
the roundup. There's some good news and some bad news, but we'll all keep working towards it.
I mean, the thing I will leave you with, and I've already kind of said it, but the only reason we have the good news is because people demanded it.
We're posting these pieces on our website, dirtbagdiaries.com, in case you want to share. And then what? Thanks, Diaries Plus members, for making this reporting possible. Thank you for caring about public lands.